All right, Truth Seeker, we're back. It's September 11th, 2019. Already 18 years since the historic day. For me, that's hard to believe because I was 18 years old when it happened. That means I've almost lived half my life in the post 9/11 era, as maddening as it's been. People can't see through the obvious lies, but that's what we're here for. Want to send a shout out to the chat. Only a couple people here so far. Leroy, I see your comment. You said you still can't get Patreon working. And I don't know if that means you haven't been able to sign up, but if you're having trouble logging in, I hate to recommend Google products, but Patreon does work best on Google Chrome. If you want to download that browser, it'll probably solve any problems you're having. Maybe just use it for that. And I see the next comment. I don't understand it, but I'm sure it means something. All right, so let's go through this. Today, September 11th, 2019, the New York Times has a story to have us remember the day. She fled the 68th floor, and again, 68 and September 11th. Let's again revisit the significance of the number 68 in regards to 9/11 and realize what I'm about to show you, it's just the short list. The word terror equals 68, which was the favorite and most repeated word of the Bush administration. That would be Bush II, Shrub Part 2, George W., who was the sitting president when 9/11 happened. Of course, his father, both of them were members of Skull and Bones. His father, 11 years to the day, gave the speech about a new world order and a world freer of terrorism. Anyhow, 1968. Terror does equal 68, but more importantly, 911 was made the national emergency dialing code in 1968. World Trade Center construction began in 1968. George W. Bush graduated from Yale and Skull and Bones in 68. And every year from Bush's birthday, July 6th, to September 11th is a span of 68 days. We're going to talk about how al-Zawahiri is also in the news today, and he's 68 years old right now. He's saying there will be jihad for the events that took place during Tisha B'Av, where tear gas was sprayed on Muslim worshippers at Temple Mount. And of course, last year on September 11th, we put out a video saying they're foreshadowing an event at Temple Mount for August 11th, which was Tisha B'Av, which is the day the tear gas happened. So this is how the news works. They foreshadow their wrongdoing through riddles that most people would never comprehend. Most people read this story and just think, oh, a woman on the 68th floor that day. That would have been high up. That would have been terrifying. Not realizing what's really in that headline. And realize the New York Times, mainstream media, they do this every day. They put numbers before people's eyes that have a lot of meaning, but only in this code of letters and numbers that almost no one knows about. So, in terror, CIA's another 68. Remember after JFK was murdered by the numbers, Truman, who created the CIA, who signed it into being, I should say, he wrote an op-ed exactly 1 month later, December 22nd, 1963, saying the CIA needed to be gutted, all of its powers needed to be taken away, all it should be is something that gathers information. Why would he write that? Why would he write that? Hello, September 11th. It looks like I screwed up here. Let me get this lady's name up so you can see the gematria. Kayla, the first name, sums to 85. When you write out September 11th correctly, it sums to 85. Today is al-Zawahiri's 85th day of his age. So you get this woman named Kayla, right? So Kayla's got the 85 connection, which makes sense. Then her last name's Bergeron. Kayla Bergeron, the 134 is what jumps out here. The 134, that's supposed to be in my post. Her name is 134 like Tisha B'Av, like 9th of Av. And remember, 9th of Av and Tisha B'Av are to remember the destruction of the two temples. The first of which was Solomon's temple. Don't forget on 9/11, 3 buildings fell. Buildings 1 and 2, and then 8 hours later, Building 7, which was announced to have fallen prematurely by the BBC. And Building 7 was called the Solomon Brothers Building, like Solomon's Temple. And in Jewish gematria, Tisha B'Av equals 9/11. 9/11 to remember the destruction of the two temples. You see how they do it? So then they give you the story of this woman, Kayla, and it fits right in, right? Her name's 134 like Tisha B'Av, like 9th of Av. And by the way, 9th of Av, the small way, equals 44. When September 11th, 2001 happened, it was 44 days after the 9th of Av, which is the English way of saying Tisha B'Av. The Hebrew calendar, there's two versions. September 11th, I forget if it's the civil or I forget what the name of the other calendar is. One of the two Hebrew calendars, September 11th is the 9th day of the 11th month on the Hebrew calendar. So it fits in that way too. So she's got PTSD like a lot of Americans from that day. And then also today, September 11th, 2019, you get 68-year-old al-Zawahiri threatening jihad. You know. Notice al-Zawahiri in our base ciphers. In case you're new here, there's 4 base ciphers. You want to know them all. Inside out, alphabetic order with rules and numerology, reverse alphabetic order with rules and numerology. His name has a lot to do with terrorism. 5463, 108, 108. Not an accident. Remember what the definition of terrorism means. Government by intimidation. Central Intelligence Agency equals 135 like terrorism as well. CIA 68. Not an accident. Not an accident. This is what government has always been. And then you get Donald Trump. Little Donald Trump headline on 9/11. Don't ever forget that Donald John Trump equals 68. So does The Apprentice. Don't ever forget this commercial from 2009, which foreshadowed his rigged election, talking to Sheep 11 and 9. Of course, he was announced as the 45th president-elect on the anniversary of the fall of the Berlin Wall, which was November 9th. Donald equals 119 in Jewish Gematria. We got a caller. I'll take it. Caller?
Hello, hey, what's up, Zach?
Doing a live stream. What's going on?
Hey, one of my friends just pointed out something big that we could point out for 2 baseball games that could tell us who the winners are. You ready for this?
I'm listening.
Okay, so if you look on the all-time list, head-to-head, and I know you were leaning Indians for that one, more or less, but if you look at the all-time list between the Indians and the Angels are going to be going for their 223rd win today.
Okay.
On 9/11. And then if you also look at the Padres, actually, no, the Angels have 322 losses, so they stay on 222 losses. So there's another 322.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm doing a live stream on September 11th right now. It's not exactly the best time for baseball decodes.
Okay. Yeah, because I had another one Padres with another 222.
Okay.
Bye. Okay, bye.
All right, see you. And anyway, also what he just said about who I was leaning in the baseball game, that's not correct either. But anyway, back to the topic at hand. You know, Donald Trump, who's a house of cards, tower ready to fall himself. He's got a little 119 thing going, so they got to have him up there front and center on September 11th. And notice what he was up there with. Boone Pickens, oil man. Of course, September 11th, multifaceted agenda. A lot of it did have to do with oil. You know, they built all sorts of pipelines all over Afghanistan and the Middle East after we went over there and invaded and wiped out God knows how many people. But notice Boone Pickens, 68. You know, you get your New York Times 68 story. You get a threat from 68-year-old al-Zawahiri. And then you get Boone Pickens, 68. Then you get Kayla Bergeron reminiscing about the 68th floor. Okay, so we hit the 68s. With regards to Boone Pickens dying today, the surname Pickens equals 77. When you write out September 11th, it equals 77. When you write out World Trade Center, it equals 77. Don't ever forget the deal with Flight 77 on September 11th. I know I'm a broken record with this, but everyone should know it. The Pentagon is 77 feet tall. The Pentagon is on the 77th meridian. They said Flight 77 took off at 8:20 and crashed at 9:37, which is exactly 77 minutes later. And in the most guarded airspace in the world with surveillance everywhere, all they can give you is 3 frames of something that you can't make out at all, but they tell you is a plane. You know, sheep will believe anything. So, again, September 11th, 77, so is World Trade Center, so is United States, so is Secret Society, so is Power. Don't forget, Pentagon construction began September 11th, 1941. 77. They say that 77 is the number of the wizard. On this year, Sunday, July 7th, 2019, on 7/7, Bill Gates came out and called Steve Jobs, or Steven Jobs, a wizard. Steven 77. He says, Gates says Steve Jobs cast spells to keep Apple from dying. And 77, the number of the wizard, it's not an accident, the Wizard of Oz sums to 77. And it's not an accident that the people of this land are under a magical spell of not being able to see the very, very obvious, such as the lies of September 11th. I mean, you literally have to be under 100% mind control to not see that 9/11 was a lie. A man in a cave, turned 2 buildings to dust. Where did those buildings go? If planes brought them down, if it was the fires, where did the 110 stories of building go? There was almost nothing left. They were little piles of rubble, massive buildings. Where'd everything go? They called that site Ground Zero. Ground Zero. What was the definition of Ground Zero before September 11th? It only had one definition. The point above or below ground where a nuclear or atomic weapon explodes. What was the project for atomic and nuclear weapons? Was it called the Manhattan Project? Where were the World Trade Centers? Were they in Manhattan? Again, you got to be brain dead to not see what's going on in this nation. End of discussion. So coming back to Pickens, who's dead on September 11th, Mr. 77 himself. Again, reminder about why you want to know all 4 of these base ciphers. He died 112 days after his birthday. If you run the alphabetic order in reverse, Pickens equals 112. The Jesuits operate in 112 countries. Remember, D.C., it's Jesuit land, it's Scottish Rite of Freemasonry land. And the Jesuits and the Scottish Rite, they share their motto at the 32nd degree. The Jesuits operate in 112 countries. Notice Pickens with the alphabetic order and rules numerology is 32, and he's dead on a date with 32 numerology. America equals 32. 7/4/1776, a date with 32 numerology. T. Boone Pickens, the big Oklahoma State donor. He died of natural causes. If natural causes includes a lethal injection, then you got it. He sure did. R.I.P. Today, MLB announces plan to honor victims and families of 9/11 attacks on 18th anniversary. And what a coincidence that the Arizona Diamondbacks are playing in New York against the Mets. Who remembers what the World Series was after New York? Yankees, Diamondbacks. Why? Because those are the only 2 states that sum to 39. Very special number. New York and Arizona equal 39, so does Masonry. Where's most of this secret coding come from? The 39 books of the Old Testament. But, by the way, baseball's 18. Roger Maris hit 61 home runs in 1961. 61's the 18th prime number. Type in sacred geometry, 61, and then go to Gematria and type in the word prime. You'll see it equals 61. In moments, you'll understand why all of these things are what they are. Gematria, the practice of coding numbers into words, is based on sacred geometry. All of this stuff's interrelated. But anyway, what they're doing for this 18-year anniversary on the baseball diamond is typing or having "we shall never forget" all over the place. Yeah, we shall never forget the bullshit. That's how it should end. We shall never forget the bullshit. Anyway, 74, like how the World Trade Centers were on the 74th meridian. Remember, energy, weapon, nuclear, they're all 74. Masonic, Jewish, occult, Gematria, English, they're all 74. The dancing Israelis. Remember the dancing Israelis? who said they were over here from Israel to document the attacks because they had foreknowledge. Somebody check with the ADL. Is that anti-Semitic to point out the facts? Is it anti-Semitic to point out that Israelis were here to document the attacks and they went on live television in Israel and said that? They supposedly spent 71 days in jail. Mossad equals 71. So, is it anti-Semitic? Should we keep giving Israel billions of dollars each year? Oh, thanks, Israel. Thanks, you had the foreknowledge of 9/11. You were over here to make a little documentary about it. Here, you know what? We'll send you a few $1 billion each year. How's that sound? Of course, we pay for it, the taxpayers. Aren't you glad we pay all this money in taxes? You know, so they can build bombs and blow them up into dust and then make you take your shoes off at the airport. You know, my camera froze. Yeah, this is what it's all about in America. Here's what else it's all about, watching football, right? Watching no talents like Tom Brady, the Patriots, the Patriot Act, Mo Lewis on the Jets, Rex number 11, Drew Bledsoe, then the least athletic body in the history of the NFL, a guy with no agility, no ability to run. Somehow he has 10 million years in the pocket every time he drops back, ends up winning every game in history. The Patriots, the Patriot Act. Anyway, Cleveland Brown in the news today. And the Cleveland Browns are about to face the New York Jets. Remember, the New York Jets, their only Super Bowl season was the year 68. Remember? They won 16-7, like 167, the 39th prime. That New York number, 39. Everything in New York's 39. Every New York Super Bowl's been about 39. But this Brown, they're about to play the New York Jets this week. And take a look here. Supposedly, this man's girlfriend died this morning, September 11th at 2 a.m. She was stranded on the side of the road, and a car crashed into her and killed her. I've heard this story about 3 times in the last year in regards to NFL players. I think these NFL players would learn to stop keeping their people just standing on the side of the freeway in the middle of the night. Anyway, notice they report that the driver who crashed and killed the girlfriend was 47 years old. This happened in Ohio, 47 degrees on the Masonic compass. Again, in tribute to the 47th problem of Euclid about how to establish foundation for a structure. It's why the nation's birthday is the 4th day of the 7th month. It's why the first Super Bowl was in the 47th season of the NFL. Of course, Ohio is the birthplace of football. The name of the woman who died, Patera Cordero, her name's 139, like Freemasonry. America's 139. From his birthday to her death was 212 days. If you run the alphabetic order in reverse, her name sums to 212. 212 is the New York area code. The Browns will be playing the Jets this week in New York in the 212. If you count the full span of days, it's 213 days. Death is 213. Notice this guy, Chris Smith, his name equals 54. This is the 100th NFL season, ending with Super Bowl 54. If you write out 100, it's 54. Jets are the only team with 54 connections forwards and backwards. It's why they took the NY off the Jets helmet this year and just have Jets. So you get the 54 tribute for this 100th NFL season, which began 100 days after Joe Namath's birthday, by the way. He guaranteed the Jets will surprise some people this year, just like how the Jets, he guaranteed they'd win Super Bowl III, which they did 16-7. But notice the woman's name. With the alphabetic order and rules of numerology, her name sums to 67 like blood sacrifice, and with the reverse alphabetic order, her name sums to 77 like September 11th. So 4 base ciphers, her name is relevant in all 4 ciphers. And again, this is why you want to know all 4 ciphers, because then you'll see the totality of the riddle. So what a September 11th ritual. Right before the Cleveland Brown goes to New York. You know, what is 47? Always 47. And then you also have the 6 people dead today at Dyke Industries in Tallahassee, Florida. Notice in the middle of Tallahassee is the word Allah. You know how they're always giving you the programming. Muslim terrorist strike. He said, Allahu Akbar. It's probably not an accident. That was pointed out by somebody in my last video. Great comment. But anyway, the story is 6 people stabbed 6 people stabbed at Dyke Industries in Tallahassee. Dyke Industries is 66, stabbed 66, stab is 6. 6 people stabbed at Dyke Industries. September 11th leaves 111 days left in the year. New York equals 111, so does Tallahassee, Florida. Again, all this stuff's biblical. Number of the beast, 66. Number of a man, 66. Here is wisdom, 66. All of those phrases are from Revelation 13:18 in the 66th book of the Bible. Mankind equals 66. Mankind made on the 6th day. God regrets making mankind in Genesis 6:6. 66 is the 11th triangular number. We're on the 11th of the month. If you add 1 through 11 together, it equals 66. So it's just news by the numbers. And maybe there's some other September 11th headlines out there circulating I haven't gotten a load of yet. But if they do come up, I will be sure to bring light to whatever they're putting out there. All right, you guys, I'm going to wrap it up there. It says 134 people are watching the Tisha B'Av number. I don't believe it. Till next time.